Welcome to the Slapshot Podcast, episode number 5. I'm your host, Christopher Morais. Thank you again for being with me, because the last time we spoke, it was preseason hockey, and now real hockey is being played. The first week of the season has passed us. It's good to have hockey back. It's tilting, of course, if you play NHL DFS or season long. I'm getting destroyed in my first week of season-long fantasy hockey. DFS has been all right. The usual goalie tilts. Get that, right off the bat early into the year. Make sure that I'm tilted AF. But it's good to have hockey back. I'm just excited that it's here, that there's meaningful games being played. And on today's podcast, we're just going to recap the entire first week of hockey, because there was no podcast last week. I'm sorry about that. It was so busy. Hockey's back. I'm back to writing and stuff. Obviously, you can follow me directly on Twitter at FuzzyChris91. I'm still doing all the, hockey stuff that I do, DFS. At the Fantasy Alarm, as always, you can follow Slapshot Podcast on Twitter at Slapshot Podcast. You can find the podcast on iTunes, right? Apple Podcasts. You can find it on Stitcher. You can find it on Spotify. You can find it on all your favorite platforms. Don't forget, subscribe, rate to the podcast. Thank you to everybody who listens to it, including the people who don't like sports. It's great that, you take the time and you listen. And I'm sorry you don't understand, but, it's cool. Maybe one day you will. So let's go through just what's happened with this week, because it's been a really interesting first week. So just a couple of cool, I don't, not even cool, just things that I'm like, this happened, really? A couple of things. We'll look at it from a hockey perspective, from a fantasy hockey perspective as well. And before we start, let's crack this open. Yes, no, it's not beer. It's just 7-Up. It's a little too, it's after 12, but it's too early for beer. Let me just, delicious. Okay. So let's start with probably my favorite story of the first week. And that's Mika Zibanejad, because if you haven't been on planet Earth, you have no idea what's going on. He's got 4 goals, 4 assists, 8 points in 2 games. He's been an absolute rocket to start the season. And I think some people were worried that maybe last season's results that he had, his 30 goals and 74 points, was a little bit of a fluke. But this is pretty much solidified, at least the start to this season, that he is... he can play in the NHL. He's 26 years old now. He's not a kid. And, his first couple of seasons, I guess, with the Rangers, he was pretty good in 2016, 2017. He didn't have the points to go with it. 2017, 2018, he had 27 goals, not a bunch of assists. And then last season, all of a sudden, it just seemed like he figured it out. He's a great passer. He's a puck facilitating player. And now he's got the players to go with him. I think that's the biggest change here for him, and why he's going to have a lot of success this year. I do like what's going on with the Rangers. I don't think they're going to do very well this year, per se. I still think there's a lot of holes on that team. They could be exposed, but they're 2-0 right now. They've scored some goals. They've gotten some good goaltending. So as of their 2 first games, they look okay. But again, let's pump the brakes a little bit on here. Are they a playoff team? Probably not. Panarin helps. Let's not, question that. Buchnevich is probably the player who's going to benefit the most if he can stay on that top line with Panarin and Zibanejad. That's going to happen. If not, Kaapo Kakko, he's playing on the second line. We're going to, waiting a little bit to see what he can do. But overall, it's really Zibanejad, because from a fantasy hockey perspective, he's picked up 8 points. And obviously, if you're looking to trade him now, people know what's going on. He's a sell-high candidate. That's for sure. General rule of thumb when it comes to just fantasy hockey in general, I don't like to do much trading in the first, let's say, 2 weeks of the season. Even adding and dropping players, I won't do it unless it's, injury related. I just want to see how these players get to the start of the season. Just how are they setting in? How are their coaches using them? What's the ice time that they're looking at? Are they getting power play minutes, yes or no? Because some coaches are still trying out things. They're going to put, players on a blender and just come up with these lines that you're like, why? So sometimes some people just overreact. There's 2 games in. Some teams have played 3. Others are playing 3 tonight. Some have already played 4. Like, it's still a small sample size for, fantasy hockey managers to start just going nuts and saying, no, this guy's not good. Just wait it out a little bit. And if somebody's giving you an offer for Zibanejad, or they're a good player, I don't know, whatever you can get for him, like, how can I say this? Would I trade him? Yes, but the offer has to be pretty good, because I think he's legit. I think Zibanejad is legit. I think he's an easy candidate to surpass the 70-plus points that he had last season. He had 74. I think he could probably hit the same total or maybe go a little bit higher. He's not going to put up 8 points every 2 games, right? It's not going to happen. At one point, maybe he's going to slow down a little bit. But that entire top line of Panarin, Zibanejad, and Buchnevich is kind of like a cheap man's version of Colorado's top line of Landeskog, McKinnon, and Rantanen. So, again, from a fantasy hockey perspective, my opponent has Zibanejad, I think. Or he's got a whole bunch of players and he's destroying me. But anyways, he's pretty good right now. He's a legit player. I think he's going to have a great season. Hold on to him. I'm not thinking that he's going to be terrible, if that makes any sense. So I like Mika Zibanejad. He's had a good first week of the season. Kudos to him. Hang on to him. The second player I want to talk about is obviously, again, if you're living under a rock, maybe you don't know what's happening, but the real deal, James Neal. Boy, he's done some things. If you don't know, he scored 4 goals, right? But I'm pretty sure everybody knows, because it's James Neal, because he had 7 the year before, if I'm not mistaken. He did. He had 7 goals in 63 games for the Flames. He's got 6 in 3 games in Edmonton. So obviously it's weird, but going to play at Edmonton apparently has helped, which is, again, it's not a bad situation to be in, but he's in a good situation. I wasn't buying into the James Neal hype. I'm not buying into it just yet, because this is the Edmonton Oilers, okay? And obviously, when you play on a team with Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid, good things are going to happen. And James Neal isn't playing with them 5-on-5. He's playing with Ryan Nugent-Hopkins and Thomas Jurko, but he's still producing goals. And obviously, that's because he's playing on the top power play, and that is going to help him a lot. He has 6 goals, 0 assists, and he has always been a guy who scores goals. He has had more goals than assists since 2014, 2015 when he was with the Predators. So scoring goals, obviously not a problem for James Neal. He hasn't scored 30 since 2015, 2016. He's off to a really good pace, if I can say that. It's really, really good. He is scoring goals. He is doing what he needs to do. That is the role that he needs to fill. He needs to provide some secondary scoring. And if it's going to come on the power play, or it's going to come at some point when he maybe gets onto the top line, who knows? But right now, whatever he's doing seems to be working. I'm definitely going to sell high on him, though. If somebody wants to buy James Neal, I would trade him. I don't think this is going to last. He scored 25 when he was in Vegas, which is, okay. But Vegas had their first year team was non-comprehensible. You couldn't understand why they were having so much success. And then I guess, the fit in Calgary just wasn't there. He just wasn't getting it. He looks like he's having fun playing in Edmonton. And obviously when you're scoring, 4 goals in a game, you're having fun. But he still has an NHL shot. There's no question about that. I just think the Oilers are going to struggle at some point. And James Neal by himself, if that power play starts to go cold, James Neal is going to start to go cold as well, because that's where he's going to get the most of his goals. And he's not going to provide you with points outside of that. Right? Again, through 3 games, he's got the 6 goals. He's got no assists. And I just, from a fantasy perspective, you obviously want players who rack up points, not just goals, because goals will go away at some point. If you're getting points, you're still doing things. So that's why, in my mind, if somebody's going to give you some value, can you sell high on him? Maybe not as high as you might want to, but if I can get something for James Neal, or somebody's trading fair value for him at this point, I'd probably take him, because you didn't draft James Neal real high unless you bought into the hype of he was going to have, a better season than he did in Calgary, which again wasn't hard to beat. But you can probably get some decent value for him right now. Should he continue to score goals, then again, keep trying to sell as high as you possibly can. I don't think this lasts all year. Can he score 20 goals? Probably. But you can probably find a 20-goal scorer on the waiver wire, at the pace of goals that are being scored now. So if he's going to give you 20 goals and 15 assists, it's 35 points, 40 points. Cool. You can find that. Again, you can find it on the waiver wire easily. Unless he's going to put up 30 goals, 25 assists, I'm not crazy about him. So he's off to a good start. Get what you can for him because I expect it to change. That's about James Neal. Let's stick in Edmonton, though, because I want to talk about Zach Kassian, because Zach Kassian as well, he's off to he's not off to a flaming start like, real deal Neal is, but he's got 3 goals in 3 games. He's got 4 points. He's a +4. He's on the Oilers' top line, and it looks like he's going to stay there. And from a short-term perspective, because there are some significant injuries that have happened to players, we're going to talk about that a little bit later, and Zach Kassian fills the role of what you need. He's probably on your waiver wire. That's probably where he deserves to be most of the year. But he's continuing to get top-line minutes with Draisaitl and McDavid, and he looks like he's going to make it count, because he played there last season. He had 15 goals, right? He doesn't rack up many assists. He doesn't see a ton of, power play time on the top unit. He's, the second unit is a non-existent in Edmonton, so we don't even need to focus on that. But he had 15 goals last season playing on the top line. Career year, obviously. His highest total before that was 14 with the Canucks back in 2013, 2014. If not, it's been a, 7-7, things of that sort. He's not going to get you a bunch of points. Okay? He's never had more than 29 points in a season. So he's not going to give you that volume that you need. That being said, if you need a player to fill in, or if you're looking for a player to replace now because you have injuries, Zach Kassian is a cheap version of James Neal on the same team. And as long as he continues to have that position, which is top line winger with McDavid and Draisaitl, he's worth considering. His ownership is still low in fantasy hockey, and if you followed along with me last season, you can do it again. If you have your Fantasy Alarm subscription, that's where I'll be writing it. I'll be doing my weekly waiver wire piece, and the running gag a little bit was, add whoever is playing with Draisaitl and McDavid. That was, simple. Whoever was there, add him. And Zach Kassian has seemed to, have found a home. So that's probably the quickest way, to scout your waiver wire. If it's Zach Kassian's on the top line and he's there and you need a plug-in, I would take him, regardless a little bit of who he's playing, because I'm not going to focus on that. It's not what's important in my mind. What's important to me is that you look for players who have favorable opportunities, and playing with McDavid is a really favorable opportunity because Zach Kassian can give him the puck in their own zone. McDavid goes one end to another, dishes it off to Draisaitl, and you got to, Kassian's picked up an assist by doing basically nothing. And maybe that's how he's going to get a lot of his points this season, is maybe they're not going to be primary assists. They'll be secondary assists, but he's going to pick up his points here and there. Can he do better than 26 points? Maybe. I'm not betting on it, but I'm not going to keep Zach Kassian on my fantasy hockey team all year when his highest team, point total is 29. He does collect the penalty minutes, which is good. If you're in a league that collects penalty minutes, fine. He's had over 100 penalty minutes in 3 of his last 4 years. So from that perspective, maybe somebody who, wants to win the PIMS category every week can add him. But if not, he's really just a replacement level player. Short term, if, players are banged up or not starting or stuff like that, Zach Kassian is probably the best way to go. But he's had a good start to his year. I'm happy about that. Things seem to be going pretty well in Edmonton, which is shocking because usually they're a dumpster fire team. But good for the Edmonton Oilers and the people of Edmonton. They deserve some success. So Zach Kassian, there you go. Next, we'll take a look at Jonathan Quick, and we're not going to look at him for the positives. I was a little bit higher on Jonathan Quick than a lot of other people were in fantasy hockey. I expected the Kings to be a better team. That obviously has not happened. So I will state that as of through 2 games, for the Kings, I have been wrong on them and Jonathan Quick. He looked pretty much miserable against Vancouver, right? He gave up the goals. Obviously, that's problematic. Losing to Vancouver 8-2 is pretty, like, it's not good. It's #not good. So through 2 games, he has a 7.17 goals against average, a .750 save percentage, which is obviously it's not good. Like these numbers will balance out, but it's looking like Jonathan Quick's going to have another tough year, and it kind of looks like the Kings are going to have another tough year because there's not much to like about that squad. They just don't have these great players. Outside of Anze Kopitar and, Drew Doughty's getting older, which, shout out to Drew Doughty in his overtime goal that he scored against Calgary because he was lit. Like, you could see he was excited to score that goal. But, yeah, outside of those two, Doughty and Kopitar, there's not much you can love. Dustin Brown continues to be relevant just because he's playing on the top line. Ilya Kovalchuk's not the same player that he was. Jeff Carter's not the same player that he was. Tyler Toffoli's buried on the third line for whatever reason. Playing with players I don't even know. Their defense, like the Kings' defense, is absolutely atrocious. There's Drew Doughty, there's Alec Martinez, and then after that, it's just a clusterfuck of players that you're just like, why? Why are you here? But I think if that defense doesn't get better, Jonathan Quick is going to get lit up more often than he's not. And maybe that means Jack Campbell plays a little bit more. Is Jack Campbell better than Jonathan Quick? Not really. But if you're a Jonathan Quick owner, you may want to grab Jack Campbell on the waiver wire if he's there. And if you're looking for a goalie, you may want to draft Jack Campbell. Because, again, is he worse than Jonathan Quick? Probably not. Is he a lot better? No. But at that point, maybe the goal here is by adding, let's say you do not own Jonathan Quick, okay? The advantage of adding him is obviously your opponent's not going to get him. And that creates either a bargaining chip to trade with, or you can look to spot start him when you need him. Having an extra goalie on your bench that you spot start, there's not a problem. You choose the matchups that you want, fine by me. But the goal, obviously, then is to trade him to the Jonathan Quick owner. If you do own Jonathan Quick, it's a handcuff. A little bit like running backs in football. You need the backup just in case, the start is having some difficulty. Is this the year Jonathan Quick loses his starting job? Probably not. He's more than likely going to play about 55 games if he stays healthy. But I don't know if the Kings are going to be a very good team. They are notorious for starting slow, and that they have done. They have started very slow. And maybe they get better as the year goes on. But I was, up until now, these 2 games in, I've been wrong about Jonathan Quick. So maybe he will correct his not goodness. That's not a word, but he will correct his terrible play of late and see how this plays out. But I wouldn't sell on Jonathan Quick right now. I'd hold on to him. What are you going to get from him? You're not going to get what you want. If you didn't follow my advice, you probably got him late in the draft. So, big deal. Hold on to him and see if the situation corrects itself. If it doesn't, well, he can only get better from 7.17 goals against average. That's the good news. And maybe the Kings will figure out something, but as of right now, not looking good. So that's that. Speaking of things that are not looking good, let's shift over to Evgeny Malkin because Gino has been, so he got injured in the second game of the season, if I believe so correctly. It's a soft tissue injury, right? Lower body, soft tissue, whatever you want to call it. And so far, head coach Sullivan has said that this is a long-term injury. Him and Bukestad both got injured, but the sense is Malkin is not going to miss the entire season. That's good. But he will be out long-term. How long is long-term? A month, 2 months, 3 months? Who knows? Gino has not played 82 games since 08, 09. So obviously fantasy hockey, peeps know that you're not going to get 82 games out of Gino. You're going to get 60 to 75 in a good range, but you're going to get the points, right? You're going to get the whole mess of points that comes with it. You're not going to get those points this year. That's the hard thing. And I know there's a market for injured players, injured superstars as well. Like Malkin can still put up points when he plays. The Penguins now are super thin, so that also hurts the value of some players on that team. Specifically for Malkin and specifically for fantasy owners who have him, the best case scenario obviously is to stash him on your on your IL or IR, whatever you have in your league, and try to see what if you can get something for him. If you can get some value for him or a player that's playing, maybe a top 30 forward, fine. I doubt you'll get it. But it's hard. Obviously, I say this because I'm a big proponent of, loving, Malkin. I feel like sometimes he's disrespected. He's disrespected, obviously. I know that because of the injuries, and now it's kind of playing out to be exactly like that, right? He gets hurt. And who knows, again, it's a soft tissue leg injury. Is that a groin? Is that a ligament? Like the hit didn't even look bad. He's out at least a month. So at that point, if it's just a month, then fine. Then it's not the losses that bad. Now if it starts to get 2 months, 3 months, if he's out 3 months, it's basically a little bit over half of the fantasy hockey season. Can you go half the year without, a player that some of us drafted in the second round? Who knows? But I know one thing is for sure. If I can get something for Gino, I'd probably take it. I don't know what that is. I don't know how much you want to sell. It's going to depend. I wouldn't make a trade within the first 2 weeks. See how your season plays out a little bit. If you see that, the players that you've picked up, if you're active on the waiver wire and your team does well and you don't need to make any drastic changes or look to acquire some scoring, then maybe you wait on Gino. And if I'm a fantasy owner who has started well and I want to acquire Gino, this is probably, target the owner who has him and see how their season has started. Because a lot of times, if Malkin's not going to miss the entire year, and if I can have my team just kind of, do well during the regular season, make the playoffs. That's what I tell people. In fantasy hockey, you want to make the playoffs. Yes, you want to finish at the top of the leaderboard, obviously, if you get a bye or something, but you want to make the playoffs. And sometimes you want to acquire some players who are going to come back towards the end of the fantasy hockey season and give you a boost. Some teams cannot hold on to their injured players. They don't have room on their bench. Some leagues don't have an IR spot. They can't hold the roster spot. So that's how players become available. In one of the leagues that I'm in, we have one injury spot. And, if that owner has Malkin and that's clogged up for a large part and other players on his team start to get injured, definitely going to make a phone call and say, hey, can we make a deal for this player? Because sometimes, if I'm in a better situation in my pool than, let's say he is, I can maybe absorb that, the roster spot that is keeping Malkin, knowing that when he does come back, assuming he does, then, he's a real big addition to my fantasy team and he'll definitely help me through the playoffs. But for now, I'm probably going to wait. I'll probably wait 2 weeks to see what news is going to come out about Gino. Is he going to start skating? Is he in crutches? I'm going to look for some information and say what's going on with him. Because, again, if he's out at least a month, which at that point the team knows kind of what's wrong with him. They're just not telling us. So if he's going to miss a couple of months, then, the price goes down. I can see to acquire from him. If he's going to miss just 4 to 6 weeks, well, I'm not getting any. I'm not going to trade. I'm not going to trade for him at face value and get 6 weeks less of Gino. But it's unfortunate that he got injured. Like I said, the hit didn't even look that bad. It just looked like an awkward hit. So that sucks. But again, if you drafted him, you probably knew this was coming at some point. So it came a little bit earlier than we thought it would. So it sucks to be Gino. A player who it doesn't suck to be is Anthony Mantha. And I'm not surprised that Mantha has had a strong start to the season. Again, if you purchase the Fantasy Alarm draft kit, he was one of my sleepers. Sleepers as in terms of players who would return value based on his average draft position, because he was going a little bit farther outside the 125 overall. And a lot of times, like I had stated in my breakdown, people tend to kind of not want to draft players who play on terrible teams. And the Detroit Red Wings are a pretty terrible team, but that's just who they are. They've had a decent start to the season. I will give the Detroit Red Wings that. They've had a decent start. They've scored some goals. They've done what they needed to do. But Mantha's got 5 goals in 3 games. He's got 7 points in 3 games. He has yet to break 50 points. He could have done it last season. He got injured. I had him penciled at about 30 goals this year. I really thought that he could get to that. He scored 24, 2017, 2018. He's got 25 last season. He played 13 less games. He could have easily hit 30. I said this year, definitely he can hit 30 playing, with Larkin and Bertuzzi. And with the start that he's had to the season, if you did listen and draft him, congratulations, because now you have Anthony Mantha. And again, sometimes if you want to trade him and as a sell high candidate, you can. I would hold on to him because, again, I really do think that he is, he's the real deal. And I think he can score. I think he can score over 30 goals at this point. I mean, assuming that he keeps up a pace, he can't keep the pace that he's on now, but assuming that he scores on a regular basis like that, 35 goals for a guy that you drafted outside the top 125 in some leagues is pretty good. Is he going to get a whole bunch of assists? I don't know, but he's going to be able to pick them up. He's playing on the top line. He's playing top power play minutes. He has all the qualities that I like of a player. He's a pure goal scorer, and nobody's ever questioned whether he can score goals. Because his last 2 years playing in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, he scored 50 goals and 57 in his last year. He had 120 points in 57 games playing in the Q. So the question was never, can he score goals? That was never the question. He can. It's can he do it consistently in the NHL? And this is now, I'm going to say this is his 4th full season. He played 10 games back in 2015, 2016, but this is going to be his 4th full season. He's 25 years old too. He's not 20 anymore. Like, he's been in the league a little bit now. And he has an NHL shot. No question about that. And players who shoot the puck a lot or who can shoot it are going to score goals. He is one of them. There's no question, like I said, that he can do it. He's proven he can do it all the way up until the NHL. His 24, 25 goals, it's just like it's average. He's been an average player up till now. I think he has the potential to really rack up the goals. I do. And it's not that he's not a good passer either. Right? Like he's had as many assists as goals in his last 2 years about. His last season of junior hockey had 63 assists. So he can pass the puck. So that's going to help him as well. And I'm a big fan of Dylan Larkin. Everybody already knows this. I think, Tyler Bertuzzi really completes that line super well. Again, they are a cheap version of Colorado's top line. That to me is what I use other lines and I compare them to that line just because last season they were so dominant. And I look at this line and I say, this is going to be the line. They're going to dominate when they can. And what's important for Detroit is, like I said, they're going to lose a lot of games. They're not great. And let's not get caught up pretending that the Red Wings are going to make the playoffs here. I don't have them penciled as a playoff team. Their defense is still, not that great. And, Philip Zadina's still not NHL ready. I think that leaves a hole in their top six, or at least, it forces a guy in the bottom six to play in the top six. But their depth is not good. That's for sure. Their bottom six is probably the worst in the league. And it's not even close. Athanasiou is healthy. That's important as well. He's going to center that second line. Here's a guy who's going to, take a little bit of pressure off that top line. But, I'm not looking at Luke Glendening or Adam Ernie or Valtteri Filppula to score goals, right? So that's the problem with Detroit. They're going to be trailing a lot, which means they're going to have an opportunity to score a lot of goals. That top line is going to be on the ice a lot, and that makes me happy. And again, they're on the top power play unit together. Mantha's playing the point, which is, it's a good spot for him. He can facilitate the puck around the ice. There's a lot of things I liked about him before the season. He's kind of confirmed it now. You're not going to be able to trade for him if you didn't draft him, because you're going to have to pay top dollars for him. At that point, I don't really want to do that. I think, like I said, I think he's the real deal. I truly believe that he can be a 35-goal scorer, probably pick up maybe another 30 assists, finish the year with 65 points. I genuinely think that he can, if he stays healthy, if he plays about 75, 80 games, he can be one of those players who's really, really close to the point per game pace that he just hasn't been able to do so far up until his career. So I like him. He's surprised. Not that he's surprised me. I just didn't think he'd be off to that kind of start. He is really, he's off to a great start. Good for him. Local kid as well. So, shout out to the Anthony Manta family. The last player I want to talk about is John Gibson. And I just want to talk about the whole Anaheim Ducks team, because this team was supposed to be absolute garbage, and they have not been garbage. And I specifically want to talk about Gibson because he is the backbone of that team. A lot of times when we talk about John Gibson, we know that he's he's an elite goalie. I'm comfortable saying that he's one of the best goalies in the NHL. And it's just that he plays on a terrible team. And that hurts. That hurts his value. He's given up 3 goals this season as 3 games he's played. So that's a goal, 1 goal against per game. He's got a .970 save percentage. He's made 98 saves. So the puck is hitting him. It's hitting him a lot, and he's stopping the puck. He's got a 922 career save percentage. I think he can return close to those numbers. But he is really good, is what I'm trying to say here. He's really good, and I didn't give him enough love because I really thought the Anaheim Ducks were going to be a garbage team. And I drafted some players who were on the Anaheim Ducks just because, again, a little bit like the Red Wings, they're going to struggle. They're going to score goals, but the problem with Anaheim is you weren't really sure where it was going to come from. Sam Steele's been hurt a little bit, so that's kind of sucked some value out of that. I really thought he was going to be able to, find a home, on that top line in Anaheim. Maxime Comtois as well, same thing. He's been a health scratch in and out. Kasse, Max Jones, these guys are playing, bottom 6 minutes. It's not playing out exactly as I wanted to just yet. So if you have an opportunity to buy on, Andre Kasse and Max Jones and, Maxime Comtois and all these players, Sam Steele, do it. They're not going to cost you much. And specifically what I like about Sam Steele is if he slots into the second line, he's going to be playing with Ricard Raquel and Jakob Silfverberg. And that line, to me, is, that's the best line on that team, right? Ryan Getzlaf and whoever else he's playing with on the top line at that point. Now it's Devin Shore and Troy Terry. Those guys are going to be counted on to shut down the opposing team's best players. I don't think they're going to give Sam Steele that kind of assignment. And again, because, Kase has started off a little bit of slow, Silverberg as well, Ricard Raquel, they haven't, it hasn't gone super crazy to start the year. And the Ducks are not going to be a team that's going to score a whole bunch of goals either. Like, let's not expect them to put up 4 or 5 goals a game. That's not it. For now, they've scored enough goals for John Gibson to win games. And that's the only thing that really matters here. Is John Gibson going to continue to put up those elite numbers? No. I think he finishes the year with about a 2.25 goals against average, 926 save percentage, which is elite in this, in this year's NHL. But their defense is, it's decent enough that they can get the job done. John Gibson, like I said, he plays on a terrible team, and so far he's gotten it done. If you could sell on John Gibson and pick up an elite goalie as well, I'd probably make the move. If somebody's going to give, if somebody right now is panicking about Andrei Vasilevsky or Sergei Bobrovsky, I'd probably make that trade today. I would make a 1-for-1 deal of John Gibson for Sergei Bobrovsky. I think Bobrovsky's going to have a better season. I think it's been a slow start, right? And again, if you're a Bobrovsky owner, don't make that deal. But if you're a Gibson owner and you're trying to see, can I get a little bit more value out of him? Not that I don't think John Gibson's going to be a good goalie. I just don't think the Ducks are going to be a good team. And that's going to, at one point, the puck's going to start to go behind John Gibson. It's going to happen. I think Sergei Bobrovsky is a great goalie. I think you can get him on a 1-for-1 deal with an owner who's panicking a little bit, or who says, maybe I'm not buying into the hype anymore. And if somebody's the same thing with, Vasilevsky, if somebody's saying, no, I'm not going to, I don't trust it. Those are probably the 2 goalies I'd target up there. That's it. The rest, I wouldn't do it. I think in my books, I have Vasilevsky, the top fantasy hockey goalie, Sergei Bobrovsky. At this point, John Gibson's number 3. Right? And I would put, I guess, Fleury and I don't know, somebody else. But I wouldn't trade John Gibson for anybody outside of Sergei Bobrovsky or Vasilevsky. Won't do it. He's good. I think if you can maximize the goalie position, do it. If the other owner says, no, I don't want to do it, no need to shop him and see what you can get and whatnot. Your team is fully, you have a number 1 elite goalie who, yes, maybe the growing pains of Anaheim being not good is going to be there. But for now, they've gotten off to a great start. John Gibson has looked really good. He's looking like a Vezina candidate early on. Good for him. He deserves it. He's a good player and, Tom year, as we say. So that's that. I also wanted to take a look at just, a quick recap of some of the teams I think that have gotten off to a great start, or some teams that need some help. Let's obviously start in San Jose. I think the problems we already knew in San Jose, what they were going to be. I didn't expect them to be this bad, but I did expect them to suck. And that sucking, they are doing very well. The Sharks are 0-4. They've signed Patrick Marleau, which I guess is, it is what it is. Patrick Marleau's not going to solve the situation. He's slated to play on the top line. So obviously, if you follow me on Twitter and my golden rule, never play San Jose 1 ever. But this team is just not going to be good. And Martin Jones, again, everybody knew how I felt about him. He's not a good goalie. And he was not a good goalie on a decent team last year. He's not a good goalie on this year's team that I feel has taken a step back. And his 4.55 goals against average and his 854 save percentage is not good. There was no reason for him to be drafted inside the top 100, yet he was there. And it is what it is. If you drafted him, fine. There's nothing you can do at this point. Live with the fact that you drafted Martin Jones. Because the Sharks are not going to get better. They don't. I think they have a good team. Obviously, Evander Kane being out of the lineup due to his suspension 3 games, it's going to change a little bit, but this is not the same team. Adding Patrick Marleau, Evander Kane's back. Maybe this team will score a couple more goals. Brett Burns and Erik Karlsson are still there. There's good individual players. Couture, Timo Meier, Thomas Hertl. There's good players on this team. They just don't look like they can get it done. I don't think their bottom six is very good either. It's just one of those situations where San Jose is an absolute dumpster fire of a team, and it's not going to get better. And they may not make the playoffs. I remember posting something on Twitter, someone saying, "Oh, who would be your surprise in the West not to make the playoffs?" San Jose. I don't think they have the depth to get it done, or they're just not a team that's getting it done right now. That's it. Simple as that. But we'll see. We'll see how this plays out. But again, adding Patrick Marleau is a nice thing. He signed for the $700,000, and he's already slated in to play on the top line, which is absolutely crazy because he's not a top line winger anymore. He's not. But on the right side, who else is going to take his spot? Kevin LeBlanc is probably the player that I'd want to be on that top line. I guess at one point you could, move Thomas Hertl out of the center position, play him on right wing if you want with, Meier and Couture, but that's not going to happen because you're not going to give Joe Thornton second line minutes. I think his third line role is, exactly where he should be at this point, but it's not a good situation in San Jose, and I really do think it'll probably get worse before it gets any better. So there's that. What else can we look at here? Like I said earlier, the Edmonton Oilers are 3-0 start the season. Good for them. They deserve it. Colorado started the season well, that's obviously good. In the Eastern Conference, it's New Jersey. They're off to a pretty much terrible start because there was a lot of hype in the offseason about the players that they went to go get, this being Taylor Hall's contract year and, trying to convince him, I guess, to stay. The problem is definitely in goal. And Mackenzie Blackwood's a player I kind of talked nice things about. A tough first game, obviously coming in cold when, Corey Schneider has now cramped up twice. So, deal with that as you will. I was not a big fan of Corey Schneider. I do not think he finishes the year as the top, as the team's number one goalie, but, it is what it is. This team just doesn't look to be getting it done. Jack Hughes has been, I guess, okay to start the year, but if you had Quinn Hughes scoring before Jack Hughes in your, bingo card, congratulations, that happened. So I guess, they're a good team. I guess they're still trying to learn how to play as a team. But there's nothing really that I like about anything that's going on with them. Nothing. I still think they can make the playoffs. I do. I think they have an opportunity. It's stupid early in the season, right? And the question becomes, can Corey Schneider or can Mackenzie Blackwood take over? Can one of those two figure out how to be the best goalie on their team? Because that's the weak spot for this team. They've given up 16 goals in 3 games. They've only scored 6. They're a minus 10. Minus 10. Only San Jose is worse, and Martin Jones plays for them. So their goal differential to start the season has not been good. They lost to the Flyers 4-0. They put up a somewhat of a fight, but they didn't look good. So from my vantage point, I just don't see how I don't see how this team goes the entire year with Corey Schneider, or even at that, I don't see how they go the entire year not going out to get another goalie. It's a possibility that they do. It's a legit possibility. Because they're not getting it done, per se. The goaltending situation is not where it should be. And that's what's holding them back. If they score 6, they have 6 goals in 3 games, it's fine. The Devils are not going to be this high-powered scoring machine. I don't think they will. I'd like them to, because I think they are that kind of team. But when you look at it from an outside perspective, Taylor Hall basically carried that team in his MVP. I mean, he didn't win MVP, but he should have in a way. Like he was the best player on his team, and he carried them. He led the scoring. He did everything that he needed to do to get it done. So, can this team score consistently every night? I don't know. I really don't know if they can. I think maybe that 1 year, that one Taylor Hall season was just Taylor Hall catching fire. And I don't know. I'm a little bit disappointed in the Devils, like I said. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a team that's still building. Maybe they turn it around, but they need some goaltending. And whether that comes from inside the organization, whether that comes from outside, someone has to take over. But Corey Schneider, in my mind, he's not the starting goalie on that team. It's Mackenzie Blackwood's job to win. So far, he hasn't done that, so they're going to keep giving Corey Schneider starts. But I invested in Mackenzie Blackwood because I feel like at one point the Devils are going to figure it out. I just hope that he can figure it out, Blackwood personally, before the team goes out and finds a player. Because I don't think they can afford to not make the playoffs, not with all the moves that they went out to do. And giving up 16 goals in 3 games is obviously not the way to do it. So there's that. If not in the rest of the Eastern Conference, Carolina's off to a great start. Really not surprised that they are. This is a really good hockey team. They are a good hockey team. I think they're a little bit better than everybody thinks they are. And the beating that they laid, well, not beating, I'm not going to say it was a beating, but they gave it to the Panthers and Bobrovsky easy. They scored 4 goals in the first period a couple of nights ago, and they just looked like a team that was going to do something. James Reimer has been pretty decent to start the year, which is surprising. No surprises, Dougie Hamilton, who's off to a great start as well this season. He's got 5 points in 4 games. Nobody should be surprised, really. I was telling a lot of people, if you have the chance to draft him. Doesn't matter where. Just grab him an extra round earlier if you want. With Justin Falk out of town, it's everything. That's everything Dougie Hamilton needs now is right there. If he could just get the top power play minutes, please. I am begging you, Rob Brendamore. Please set Dougie free. Set him free. He deserves it. He deserves it. Fantasy hockey owners deserve it. Like, he deserves it. Set Dougie free. There's no reason for him not to be on the top power play anymore. Jake Gardner's holding that position right now. I have no idea why. But at some point, Dougie Hamilton needs to be on that top power play unit. And just please, please, Rob, do it for the hockey peeps. So that does the tour a little bit of the teams that I wanted to talk about who have had, a good start or a terrible start to the season. And that concludes the podcast. As always, thank you. Thank you to everybody who listens to the podcast. It really, fills my heart with joy that you do. I get a lot of love from people saying, hey, I listen to your podcast. I know nothing about sports. I'm like, man, that's awesome. I wish you knew more about sports, but we'll tackle that on another day. As I mentioned, you can follow the podcast directly on Twitter at Slapshot Podcast. You can follow me on Twitter at FuzzyChris91. Subscribe, rate to the podcast on your favorite platform. Stitcher, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. I'll see if there's a couple of other places that I want to drop it in. I'm still working on that. See if it works, if it doesn't work. If it does, well, if you follow the podcast, you'll know. But I've had a blast. We'll do a podcast next week. I'm also gonna throw out an idea. I'm not sure if I want to do it yet, but again, give me some feedback. I know for a lot of people who know, I'm Canadian. I live in Montreal, so I speak French. Je parle le français très bien. And I was thinking of doing a podcast in French. Obviously, half the people who probably listen to this, or even more than half, won't understand it. But I was thinking of doing maybe one in French, do that so that some of the people who say, well, I don't listen to your podcast because it's in English. Well, fine, I'll give you one in French. And if there's enough of a demand, maybe I'll, do a couple of them more in French. But I'm still not sure if I want to do it. Maybe I would tackle, just Montreal Canadiens because that's what we care about here in La Belle Provence. So I'll see how I can do that. But that's a project. If you would like it, let me know. If you don't like it, you can also tell me that. Don't feel scared to slide into my DMs and tell me how much you hate things or love things. It's fine. If you have things that you want me to talk about, if you have a question you want me to answer as well on the pod, let me know. Shoot it my way. We'll take a look at all that together. This is always a blast. Thank you so much for joining me, and we will talk to each other next week.